Good evening, sir. This is Officer Barkley with McLean County Sheriff's Department. Do you know why I pulled you over this evening?
I got no idea, officer.
Okay.
I don't know anything. What?
Okay, well, the reason I pulled you over is because you were swerving back there, and you crossed the double yellow line there on the curb, which is really dangerous. You been drinking this evening?
Just a sip. I mean, that's all. It's just a sip.
Just a sip, huh?
That's
Okay,
it. Just
all right.
one. I got.
All right, I'm going to have you blow into this breathalyzer. Blow really hard. Give it all you got. Oh my God!
What did I pass?
You shouldn't even be alive. You blew a 666.
Wow, is that a pass? Did I win?
Mother, man.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Just sitting back and enjoying that intro with the rest of you. I know a lot of you guys have been commenting on the intros I've been using and having a little bit of fun with it. But I enjoy doing those, and I think what I'm probably going to end up doing, because I know that one is a pretty long one for an intro, but maybe doing them as outros and then doing a short intro. That might be the best of both worlds, because then you guys that enjoy those, then there would be no time restraints at all. You just let it fly as an outro. But we'll see. That's kind of the latest thing on my mind, is to do something like that. Because I have had a few, but I'm not going to sway the ship for a few, but that have said, these intros are stupid and that. People like that are never going to be happy, but I agree, a minute and 12 seconds or whatever it was is pretty long. So, but they are fun to do. I do enjoy doing them, and I'm going to keep doing them. I'm just not sure where to place them exactly. Maybe just leave it alone. So we'll see. All right. Well, good to see you guys here on a Saturday afternoon. Appreciate you spending your time here with me. I'm just getting myself situated here. And as I was getting ready for this, I see that I think my mom is here. Oh boy, my mom is here. Nothing quite like doing something like this. Your mom's right there. But my mom is so cool that I'm all right with it. My mom is totally fine to hear whatever I'm going to say here in this platform. So hello, Mom, and the rest of you guys and gals out there checking it out. Enjoy doing these with you. I got thinking, boy, this is crazy. This is the last one of these lives I'm going to do where I'm squinting at the screen trying to figure out what's going on, because my eyes are going to be fixed, or at least one of them will be fixed on Monday. Pretty excited about that. Finally, after a long wait, the cataract in the left eye will be done on Monday, and then 2 weeks from then, the right eye will be done, and then that part of this whole fiasco will be put to bed, hopefully then and over with. Because what a pain this has been. It's been one road after another with this whole last year. But this cataract has really been a bummer, because as I was starting to feel better and starting to work more and getting stuff done, then I all of a sudden have this really bad case of cataracts that came on very suddenly. Went from kind of an issue to like a big issue within a few days. And some days it's better than others, but there's days where it's real bright out, and here where I am, it's bright out, it's nice out. Looks like it's a nice one today. So there's a lot of room light in the house, and it makes it really, really tough for me to see. It's like looking through a shower door, or something that's steamed up. Really, really tough. So I'm so ready for this to be done. So it's pretty bad in your life, I guess, when you have to look forward to eye surgery. But in this case, It is, and I know several of you have been very helpful. So thanks to you that did this. Have sent me emails and messages and things that you've just recently gone through it, and that it was no problem. Everything went really well, and the results were great. So I'm really optimistic. My mom's had it. Just about everybody that's older than 60, 65 has pretty much had this. Mine would have probably lasted almost that long had it not been for the hyperbaric treatments that I went through for my wounds. That probably wouldn't have happened, but it did, and just putting it out of the way first and foremost. So I'm looking forward to that. And then as I was getting ready for today and making some notes, I always date it at the top of my notes of what day the episodes, or in this case live, is coming out. And so of course I wrote down the date, and I thought, that's crazy. That's the 1-year anniversary of me going to the ER and getting admitted and all of that, and pretty heavy stuff. My surgeon, the one who saved my life twice now, he and I see him every week at the wound center where I go, where they check out my wounds, and he's just a great guy and very talented surgeon, of course, and just really well regarded. He and I were talking about, man, it's been a year, and I remember him looking me right down, telling me about necrotizing fasciitis and what it was, and just being in a total daze, like I felt like I was in a dream or something, and I have dreamed quite a bit about that night and him and the other doctors that came in and talked to me. But that's what started the whole thing. And then he did the first surgery there where I went to the hospital, because there's a bigger hospital that's probably among the best in the entire Midwest, that they were going to get me to. But the problem was there was no beds available. So we had to do the surgery, the first one where I was, where he was, and then they sent me to the bigger regional hospital. And then he stayed with the case the whole time, even though it wasn't his case anymore. He just wanted to see what happened to that case, because most of them don't make it. Necrotizing fasciitis is brutal, and it's relentless. I mean, what they had to do in the hospital to keep me from dying is just unbelievable. And so there was intubated for 14 days, which is 12 days, which is a long time to be intubated for, and dangerous because of all the meds they have to put you on to get you there. So there was pretty good chances that I would have some long-lasting effects from that side of it too. And so, my wife had to just bear down and deal with it, and did an amazing job making those calls and just kind of hanging together, and just support of some friends too that helped. A.R. Hayes, and of course my family was, big into the whole, doing everything they could. Sister came to visit, it was just, everybody was helping, my parents, everybody. So it's been a lot of support there to get me to this point I'm at today. But I remember a year ago, and I remember it only to a degree, because then once he told me what it was, and he said, we have to do surgery now, not 10 minutes from now, right now. So I gave the wife a kiss, and that was it. And I was gone, and I woke up 2 weeks later. So pretty crazy. But yeah, so today has been a year since that whole thing started. So I appreciate everybody that's been so supportive. You guys here on YouTube, we were a thing from December of 23 to today of 24. And then I was completely out of it until, probably September. And then it was limited, and AR Hayes was relaying stuff to you guys. And you guys knew I was doing okay, but fighting through some stuff. And so it was a good team effort. Like I said, team effort here, not trying to say anything that I did was anything better than anybody else did. I was just the one that had no choice. My back was to the wall. I had no other option but to fight. So that's what I did. But looking here at the comments, it looks like I'm doing a super chat to myself. I don't even know how I did that. But that's nice of me. Oh, I did. Well, that's weird. I don't know if that's somebody messing with me or what. Wow. So just scrolling through your messages here because it's better for me to see it here on my phone than on the computer screen. But lots of people here that were commenting on the year ago thing. So thank you guys. Nice of you all to say. Yeah, I mean, everybody rose to the occasion. What else are you gonna do? But then crazy, I got discharged from the hospital and then started having problems with my right foot 6 weeks later, and then went in, and it was a back and forth. What a miserable time that was till they figured out what the heck it was. But it was a bone infection that was in my foot and was really bad deep in the bone, and was causing other problems with my ankle, and that was a mess. And so the decision was made to amputate. So that's what we did. So then I had to deal with that. But the surgeon that did the amputation came to see me at the hospital to talk about it. And my wife was there with me, and he came in and asked me if I remembered him. And I said, no. And I said, he said, you don't remember me? And he's looking at me, and I'm not seeing it, And then all of a sudden I caught his eye, and I was like, wait a minute. I said, I know who you are. I said, you're the doctor that told me I had necrotizing fasciitis. I said, that was back in May, at the end of May. And he said, yep, I remember that. And he said, I was the one that was there that night. I told you that. And I did the surgery, and now I'm here to do this next surgery because you got this bad infection, in your bone, and supposedly completely unrelated to the necrotizing fasciitis, but that's kind of a wild coincidence. But nonetheless, then had to deal with that on top of the necrotizing fasciitis. So, but yeah, I mean, what are the odds, right, of that doctor being the surgeon to do both? And so right then I decided, I had been undecided up to that point about writing a book about this. But then when he walked out of the room, I told my wife, I said, how can I not write the book now? I mean, there's your ending right there. Usually as a writer, you think, how am I going to end it? What's a good, at least me, I hate nothing more than to read a book and the ending is terrible, And that's just the worst, right? You've invested all this time and heart and soul into a book, especially if it's a good one. And then the ending is terrible. That's just, So I hate that. So I really spend a lot of time thinking about my endings. But this one, it came to me. I didn't have to write this one. This one told me, like, duh, how do you not write the book about this now? So now me and the surgeon continue our weekly visit, and just past the year mark of the first surgery, not the amputation, but the the first surgery, which is the one that I'm still fighting with in the wound center. The other one, the amputation, is 100% clear now. It's good. I could push on, it doesn't hurt, fine. But it's the other one that I struggle with from the necrotizing fasciitis. So awful disease, but nonetheless, wanted to represent or make a comment about a year ago, and it's an important day, symbolic of what a long fight it's been, because it seems like forever ago, but then at times it seems like it was yesterday. It's weird, but nonetheless, thank you, all of you, for the nice words and stuff. So as I get ready here and bang into my microphone. All right. So let's see here. We always have a good live. We always have good stuff going on here. We don't have too many trolls out there that act like a fool, which is good because we don't want them in here. If we see any, the leash is short, and my mods know that if they see anybody, being dumb, and what I mean by that is not by just disagreeing with us, because that's not what I hope that we get some people that maybe disagree. I think that's what's good for a conversation. I just think it needs to be done in a civil way, right? There's a difference between somebody getting in a live and saying, "Hey guys, I don't agree with this," well, that's fine, but don't just come in throwing your Molotov cocktails, is what I'm saying. And if we can have a normal conversation, I think it's great. But if that can't happen, then you'll be put in timeout, and then that'll be that. So mods, you are armed and ready to go whenever you see any of that. Hopefully we don't at all. And also, I got a new laptop. I needed one. I told you last time the camera on the one I've been using had been acting up, and so I tried an external camera, and I was having the same problem. Then I was having problems with all the numbers and everything, like wearing off my keyboard. And I thought about having to deal with an external keyboard. And I just thought, this laptop's been with me now almost 2.5 years. So, and I beat the crap out of these things, type really hard and type pretty fast. Then I just wear them down, and keys start getting loose, like the down key is real loose, so that's probably got to have something done to it. So anyway, I went and bought the newer model of the one I got, and my wife was helping me set it up because I can't see yet very well, and I was trying to get it ready to go today, and I was trying to get in and get into my Word through my 365 membership, and I wasn't able to get it done, and that's what I used for my notes. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it one more with the old one, and then from then on, we'll use the new one. But curious to see what the camera's like, if it's the same one or maybe a better one. I hope it's a better one. But that should be my next live. But thanks to anyone who recently did a super chat or any of that, because all that goes to it. But I got a good deal on it, so it worked out. That's why I jumped on it instead of waiting until all that. I just thought, let's just get it, because I didn't want to run the risk of not getting it at that deal I got it at. So yeah, you shouldn't see really much in the way of change, I wouldn't think, but we'll see if this thing does anything cooler than the one that I've been using. If you're not a subscriber, please consider doing that. I just passed 13,600 subs at the time of the recording today. So awesome. I appreciate that. You guys are amazing. So if you haven't done that, you're not a sub, please do that. Doesn't cost anything. And then if you like the video, hit the like button. Also, if you're on the replay crew and you want to comment, you can do that because that helps. All that kind of interaction between you and I helps. So the more you comment, the better it is. The more likes you give other comments, that helps. All of it helps. So thank you. I'll do my best to respond today with questions, but really looking at stuff with the phone, I could pretty much keep up with what's going on. It's a little bit easier for me now to multitask in this half-blind world, but hopefully that world will be over with here in a couple days. But I got some prep I got to do tomorrow, and the eye drops start today. I got to get that going. So here it goes. Here it goes with the eye surgery. So, and I'm planning to do a live here this coming week, a members only live to talk about how the surgery went and some things I'm working on and throw around some ideas with you guys. I wanted to do those only once a month. And so I haven't totally set it up yet, but I'm thinking either Wednesday or Thursday to do that. Honestly, I have to look at the Yankees schedule to see which of those two nights is better. I know that sounds terrible for anybody not into sports or into the Yankees or baseball in general, but I am, and so I do look at that. Sometimes I don't have a choice, and so it'll be either one of the two. I know they got Boston next weekend, so I'm definitely going to try to stay out of that as much as I can. But I definitely want to be watching that. So the super chats and stuff are cool. If anybody else wants to do any of that, I'll put the creeper up on the screen. So if you're interested in a tip or donation, whatever you want to call it, no requirement by any means. I appreciate all of you that are here. But if you want to do that, that's a way of doing that. Okay. You can buy merch, you can grab a book, whatever. Those of you that have already done that, I appreciate it. And if you want to join the Horns High Club, there will be a link in the description. You can do that. It's only $1.99 a month. And it's just a little more backstage access, so to speak, for Murder Metal Mayhem. And I'm also going to be looking at doing a second tier. I'm not sure yet what to call it. Got a couple of ideas. And trying to get some ideas on what to call it, but and what exactly I want the perks to be as compared to Horns High Club. So it'll still be reasonably priced, but I've just been talking to a lot of other creators that do them, and the way that they do them, I kind of like the idea. So we'll see. We'll see. I just want to be able to offer some things, but and again, as long as it's all, not required, then this way, if somebody can't swing it, they don't feel like they've got to do that, because you still get, quite a bit with the usual way you see me and watch me, whatever. So, all right. Well, like the video, subscribe, and drop a comment. And here we go. All right. Well, this last week, just the other day, I put out this microphone is not in a good spot for some reason. I keep banging into it. The video I did, the last video that I did, is one that a theory that I've come up with, and really was kind of not really a full theory, so to speak, like from showing up at King Road to calling it done in the woods of Idaho, is what I think. Anyway, I'm talking about a part of this that I think deserves at least an idea, at least something thrown around, because I was reading in one of my comments. So you guys are the ones that always, or usually the ones that kind of prod me to looking into something. But somebody in my comments was talking about that he was a hunter, deer hunter, and talking about hunting deer and what it's like. And my dad, huge into bow hunting and grew up with it. Nothing wrong with it at all. But if done properly, nothing wrong with it at all. So, these guys that do that, they understand what it's like to have to field dress a deer. Another friend of mine I talked to last week was talking about that and what you got to do out in the field. And, you want to make the animal as light as possible to get back, not to mention, all that stuff you're not going to want anyway. So you get rid of it and then the animals eat it. So it's like a circle of life type thing. But what if, and I know it's very gory to talk about, but there's no other way to talk about this than to be just, it's disgusting. But to have, field dressed, in essence, these victims, now maybe not all of them, but the reason why I think this is that crime scene had to just be very, very neat for them to be able to have not tracked that stuff everywhere. I mean, outside, down the driveway. I mean, there's no way. I mean, you're not going to go in there and do something like this with a blade, whether it be on a knife or a machete or a bat-shety, or whatever it was. You're not going to get any of that to be nice and neat and simple to clean up. This is going to be a violent situation. And so with that, I think you are not going to be seeing anybody doing anything like that with a knife. So I posed a couple weeks ago, the thought of them just coming in and doing this with handguns and not having having very little to clean up, and then we've just been lied to about the wounds. Now, I'm not saying that they wouldn't lie to us, because we know that unfortunately they do. But I think that, to say that that person, is completely untrue, because, they say this is, I mean, what are you going to call them, liar? Or there's really no easy way to say that it went from being a clean crime scene at noon when they called 911 and didn't say anything about any mess or smell or anything at all, and then went to 5:30 when Kathy Mabbitt, the coroner, shows up, and it looks like Charles Manson and the guys stop by for a party. So what happened between there? Because it doesn't make any sense. Okay. Doesn't make any sense. I see that I've got some kind of super chats or something going on, but I'm struggling because it's like in yellow and it's like really like shining back at my face. But let me see if I can see these on the okay. So Bonnie Bailey, okay, that's the one I got up on the screen. Said best of luck, Pete. If you've been through hell and back, you've got this, my friend. Thank you very much, Bonnie. So yeah, so I am going to write a book about it, and it's going to be called At Death's Door. And my friend Mike Stoltz from the Painted Wraith, ironically, the one that played the police officer in that video, or the police DUI stop video. the guy that was the cop. He's an artist, very good, very talented guy. And ironically enough, we've been friends for 20 something years, but ironically enough, we share the same birthday. I'm older than him, but we're the same date. So it's kind of cool. But he's working on an oil painting for the cover, and very excited. First time I've ever done that. I always hire a digital artist. Brian Usual's done every book I've done but one, and he's fantastic. But this one came up, wanted to do something a little different. So, and Mike is a friend, and thought he would just kill it, and I'm sure he will. I'm sure he'll make it look great. And then let's see here, we got a second one. Kelly Land, $10 super chat. Also, let me see if I can put that one on the screen too. All right, what's it? Let me put it on the screen. That's weird. So for some reason it's not letting me put the second one on the screen. Kelly Land, $10 super chat. Pete, God bless you. So thank you very much. It's very nice of you guys both to say those things. Thanks for that. So then I started to think, well, what if maybe a couple of them were done that way, right? So let's just say, for argument's sake, you had Ethan and Xana. We've heard all the chatter about them being outside. Now, I've been on the fence on this one. I mean, I could see it done outside, but I also think that's a lot to do outside. We're not going to have anybody seeing anything. So, but if you've got cops out there running around like the Banfield cops, that would be a way of minimizing it, but you still have the Queen Road apartments are like right there. I mean, this multi-story apartment complex. And that's a lot of people to control, and you have no control over them in their apartment, so you could see it. I don't know. But I guess anything's possible, but it seems like it's not feasible to do that. To have somebody being able to control the scene to that degree with an apartment building right there like that. Okay, here I got another. Man, you guys are just amazing. I don't think I've had this many super chats in such a short period of time, but Jackie Busha, 9.99 super chat. Thank you very much, Jackie. Very nice of you. Definitely nice of you to do that. So thank you. So what would be the possibility of that? Well, I think it'd be pretty easy to do, to be honest with you. I mean, you're in an area of the country where just about everybody knows how to hunt. Boys and girls. I mean, they're all into it. So, and you're not talking about some kind of high level activity. I mean, somebody to be able to field dress a deer, that's somebody that's got some hunting experience. But most people that have hunted have had to do this because, like I said, you can't get the animal out unless it's like right by a road or something like that. You would be able to get the animal out of there. It's just too heavy for one person. So, I don't see it as being that big of a deal to try to find a couple of those frat boys maybe that knew how to hunt. And we know one living right there next door. We've seen pictures of him with animals like big game out in Africa. Guy by the name of Jack Showalter. That guy knows how to do that kind of stuff. Grew up around it. Again, nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with legal hunting. Now, I can't say what he did or didn't do, but legal or not, I mean, he's got this experience to be able to do that. and not everybody could do that, but he obviously could do it. And I just love to know what they would do, they being the media, would do with a picture of Brian Koberger in his teenage years, elbow deep in red stuff, doing taking pictures with big game in Africa. I would love to know how many covers of how many magazines that picture would be on to show how bloodthirsty he was and all this kind of stuff. It's so much of a perceptions game and optics game that it's really sickening, especially when it comes to somebody's life. I mean, if you want to be like that, I'd be like that, but we're talking about a guy's life here, because even if he gets found not guilty, right, or the case gets thrown out in the middle of it because it's so ridiculous, because Dylan's phone now all of a sudden has a 9 on it, so now she can call 911, because I think that might have been the problem, was her phone just didn't have a 9 on it. So she just didn't have the ability to do it. I think that was the bombshell that we've been waiting for in court, was the phones there in Idaho. I don't know what it is. They have trouble putting 9s on them, because I know that, Hudson Lindau, he laid face down in a creek behind Greek Row. And cops didn't show up there. And that was Chief Fry showing up there at noon the next day, on a Sunday morning at noon. So kind of wild, there's just not a whole lot happening Sunday morning. So whether you're face down in a creek or, off in a 6-bedroom apartment house off campus, you're just going to have to wait. You're just going to have to wait till noon when we open back up again and get people on the case. I never seen anything like it. I really haven't. And there was the other one, the kid in Seattle that was friends with them. That was a University of Idaho student. I just did a video on him not long ago, and it's just escaping me. I'm sure you guys will drop it in the comment. But he met with Emma and Demetrius. They got him some product, and then he ends up back at this friend's apartment outside of Seattle, and doesn't wake back up again. I mean, he ODs and gets more and get sad, Caden Young, there we go, Carl, my man, Carl. Thank you, Carl. You're always on it, my friend. Yeah, Caden Young. I did videos on this. Unbelievable. And then surprisingly, Em and Demetrius get just let out of jail. The hearings were on YouTube. You could watch them. They were really hard to find. I know I found them from watching an episode of the Thought Riot podcast. I know I've had several people in the comments ask whatever happened to them. They were so good. I liked them too. They were great. I always enjoyed watching them, whether I agreed with them or not. I just liked them. But I don't know whatever happened to them. That's just really strange. Because it was no like, hey, we're leaving or nothing. It was just, they were just gone. So I'm not really sure what happened, but I hope they're okay. But nonetheless, they did a video on Caden and that whole situation. They did a lot of videos about stuff that I heard for the first time through them. So they were great. They were great. But could they have taken care of a couple of them off out of the house and then drain them, did the field dressing? Again, we're talking about quickly. This would be a fairly quick process with somebody that knew what they were doing. And then this way you're dealing with very little of the red stuff. And the good thing of that is just less tracking it in and around. So they would have had some way to, cover them up and then bring them into the house, unload them, and then have that be part of the pile of stuff they were going to get rid of wherever they got rid of it. If you believe 4chan, it was somewhere down by Boise in a town off of Snake River. I can't remember, Market something or other. I have it somewhere in my notes. But that's where all that stuff was brought to over the Thanksgiving holiday. And Snake River, that was twists and turns all the way through, as far as I know, all the way through Idaho. But it's a pretty good sized river, but that would be the perfect place to get rid of stuff, you know. I know that was the thought, that they believe that that's how Brian Koberger got rid of what he did. But I mean, in a state like Idaho, I mean, you wouldn't have to drive but a few miles out of town to have probably 100 different places you could stash something and probably never be found again. You know, I mean, really, I mean, you're talking about some pretty rural parts of the country. You know, I mean, this is not like an urban environment. You know, there's no, like, you know, Walgreens across the street. You know what I mean? There's nothing. So once you got out and into it, you know, there's very little, you know, just wide open spaces, you know. So I don't see it being that hard to get rid of something in a place like that. I just don't. So, but all right, looking through here, want to see if anybody's got any comments here that I need to talk about. I see here busted flush Judith. I got done a week ago. I lost it. How these comments move fast. Oh, I got done 2 weeks ago. C's white. My other one sees yellow. Oh, I can't see it. Darn it. I don't know why it doesn't keep it on the screen for me while I hold it. Okay. She says she can read very well and sees far away. Remarkable. Yeah, that's what I'm excited about, is just to be able to just see without the fog, but to be able to see that well and to see some distance would be pretty cool. So yeah, see here, somebody's talking about here Isle of Shoals, that Hitler said the roommates would be in the courtroom, but audio only to the public. That just makes me sick to my stomach. I mean, honestly, this whole time, all I kept thinking is, I can't wait for the day that Dylan has to get up on that witness stand and testify. I cannot even wait, because she is just going to get, talking about eviscerated, she's going to get figuratively eviscerated on the witness stand when Ann Taylor gets up there, or the other one, Missoff, she gets up there and just destroys her. Because, I mean, I honestly think my 3-year-old granddaughter could destroy her. I mean, she's just a wreck, you know, changing stories back and forth. And just as we, you know, start commenting on something about her, it's like another thing falls. You know, there was the text messages, and then I still don't think we got even all of those. I just don't. As fast and as back and forth as they text, you know, at that age, there's no way in hell that we've got everything. I just won't believe that. We still don't have everything when there's a few of them that just says they made a phone call to this number, but don't say anything about who that person is. You know, who are they calling? You know, and then just like the use of the Indeed app that Dylan did, and I was joking around about it being the first time that they ever had a suspect in a case like that running around checking for job employment opportunities while the crimes are going down. But mean, I was goofing around, but now I had somebody comment about that, and I gave it more thought. I think there could be something to it, but maybe she was going there to message somebody. Because just like with LinkedIn, you could message someone through that. So how do we know that that wasn't the case, right? That would actually be pretty smart, which is one reason why I can't see her doing it, because she was dumb enough to do all that other stuff on her phone. But maybe she's really the smart one out there, and the real gnarly stuff they did was on burner phones. And they just gave us a few crumbs with the real phone, but maybe the real bad stuff they did was on burner phones that we don't have. That's very possible in this situation. So maybe she was checking on job opportunities. I don't know. I'm guessing it was probably just hit inadvertently, but it is what it is, right? See here, Kelly Land said Bubbly has some good videos. So she does have good videos. I don't like everything she does, but I do like a lot of it. I appreciate the amazing amount of time that she spends on that stuff. I mean, her and Lana and Jules, those three, when it comes to just really getting into the details of this, those are tremendous channels, for different reasons. I don't do that kind of research like that. I just don't. I'm more of a just commenting and speculating and taking bits of information and trying to make it make sense, that kind of thing. So I could definitely say, I commend all of the channels that do that kind of stuff, because that's great work. I mean, a lot of great web sleuths out there have just done tremendous stuff. They really have. Just looking here. Demon Dog asks, Pete, what do they mean by the word carved when it comes to Ethan's legs? That's a good question. As far as I know, what they're talking about, Demon Dog, is actually carving into the flesh of his legs, as horrific as that sounds. Now, I've seen a couple of things about this. The whole cult type activity. People that are in groups like that, these extremist type groups, whether it be, for religious reasons or for all kinds of strange reasons. I mean, on the Murder Metal Mayhem podcast, we've done some wild ones, just wild, crazy, high body counts too, that I'm surprised I'd never heard of before. The Mormon Manson, this guy was just over the top with commanding people to do these things on behalf of the church. I mean, wow. I mean, really, really good stuff. If you're into cults and you've never heard of the Mormon Manson, Google that and go check that guy out. Really, really interesting. But the whole idea of the mind control, but I've heard that some of these groups do this stuff to like prove a point. You have some of these Mexican gangs and these cartels that do stuff like that. You have domestic gangs that do things similar to that. Now, I don't know what they carved, but they carved, I think I just heard symbols or something like that. So you'd have to bring in obviously somebody that knows more about that sort of thing, like they did in the Delphi case. That's the one that comes to mind, where you had these Odinist runes, these symbols on these bodies left behind in a posed form in an extremely ritualistic sort of environment, with these symbols of these branches on the bodies, very ritualistic, and that's kind of what I get the feel of here in Idaho, is that there's some sort of ritualistic nature to this, which would lead me to think it could be a group type setting. I'm not seeing frat boys doing something very ritualistic. I could see the frat boys, especially in this situation, because of some of the things we've heard of some of the frat boys being twisted enough to want to just do something warped like this. But I'm not sure if I see it for a ritualistic reason, other than I would see it for a what do I want to say, a sadistic sort of reason, because we have heard the rumors that there was a couple of those frat boys that were super into this like murder fantasy thing. I mean, as whacked as that is, they were all about it, like since high school, thinking about this. So think about that. I mean, if you had been obsessed with something like this since high school, I mean, something's wrong. Something is wrong somewhere upstairs. But downstairs, there's something wrong on every floor of that house, because that's just messed up. That's just messed up. Not just upstairs, everywhere. Everywhere there's a place, that house is messed up, because man, to think of doing that to other human beings, especially people you live with, I mean, that's even more disturbing, if they were, acted out or in part assisted by the others that live there. Because I don't know how you get to the end of that story and have that make any sense, without their potentially having some involvement in this, the other roommates. But Devil Dog, was asking about the carvings in his legs. Does anybody else have any information on the okay, so here's some. Tamara Ernst says cartels take organs back to make money back. So yeah, proof of death kind of thing. Yeah, and then like there were cases like the Iceman, Richard Kuklinski, the mob hitman that would film different things, and then the person that ordered the hit, if they could get it on film, they would pay more. Like twisted stuff like that. Yeah, I like this. Spaz McGee says, Dylan, can I just tell you about the dream I had at 4 a.m. pretty much? Dispatch says, F off. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that dispatcher was great. She's like, yeah, whatever. I know you're just trying to throw down your alibi here, insert here. Like she was filling out one of those Mad Libs, insert alibi here. The dispatcher comes on. Okay, we want to know what's going on right now. I don't care what happened on 4. Yeah, 8 hours ago. What the hell does that have to do with this emergency? I mean, think about that. I mean, what would you be calling for 8 hours later about an emergency that happened 8 hours ago? I mean, that doesn't even make any sense. Oh, I see here Moonvale talking about Scott Metalhead. That was the UK Metalhead, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of great metalheads I run across here that like true crime and heavy metal also. it's kind of funny. I get people now and then, give me grief about doing the metal stuff and throwing up the horns and everything, and that it's dumb or whatever they say about it. And it's like, well, if I was doing this like everybody else, I mean, why would anybody want to watch me? I mean, if you want to watch somebody do everything the same as everybody else, then go watch the other dozen or so that are out there doing it. People that are doing it differently are the ones that you want to see, right? Those are the ones that are unique, that make you want to, look at, I was just trying to see how many people are here. It's like over 300. Wow, that's good. That's good. I really didn't know what to think here on a nice Saturday afternoon. And the times on these too, I try to keep it to where you could, it's not going to interfere with plans. It's early enough. You got all kinds of time afterward. You could even do this while you're cooking. You can watch some Murder Metal Mayhem while you cook. I see here Mrs. Tree makes a reference to church lady. Could it be Satan? Yeah, that's good. I wish there wasn't these copyright issues on YouTube, because I'd love to use stuff like that, because those are great. I used to have the poster of that. I can't find it. I think I got lost somewhere along the way. But yeah, I used to love the church lady on Saturday Night Live, Dana Carvey. That was great. Yeah, and a different weapon being used on these. I see here Silver Fox mentions a different weapon on Ethan. Yeah, for sure, especially in the carving stuff. I mean, I don't know a lot about knives. I know that I've had Lucky on with me before talking about the K bar, and Lucky's really into hunting and hiking and camping and stuff. And he was saying that it's good for like clearing brush and stuff like that. So that's why when it comes to a weapon to do a crime like this, that would not be one I would think most people would come up with, unless they went on like an 80s movie kick and saw Rambo and thought, there we go. I want to be like Rambo. It's kind of dumb. There's a lot of other knives that you would choose in a situation like that. So we get somebody in here as throwing out about Illuminati and Freemasons and all that. I've mentioned this before. I used to belong to the local Freemasonry, the Freemasons Blue Lodge here where I live, and back in the early 90s, mid 90s, and it was more of just a curiosity that I joined, just because I was curious what it was. But I only was there for 3 years, maybe 4 years. I got kind of burnt out on it. A lot of volunteer work. It's all volunteer work, but like the cleaning up the roads, the Adopt a Highway programs and stuff that they did. A lot of different functions that I volunteered my time, and my kids were young at the time, and it was tough to not be there for times when I wanted to be there with them. So I wound up getting out of it. And then I wound up a year or two later then getting into playing in music again and started a band, and ironically named my band Low 12 after a thing in Freemasonry, even though the band had nothing to do with Freemasonry whatsoever. Low 12 is like a concept in Freemasonry that means the very moment of end of something. So like your low 12 would be like the moments before you pass on. And that was kind of deep and kind of heavy, and I thought that would be a cool name for a band. So that was the only reason I used the name, not for any tie to Freemasonry, but yeah, that word or those words low 12 comes up when you Google Masonry, because there's a thing in the third degree where they get into that. But I'll leave it there. But what I was going to say, Christina, is about the most crazy thing I'd seen the Freemasons do at the lodge that I belong to was to eat ham and beans on a Tuesday night with the guys. Or walleye, or whatever the meal was of the day or the night we used to eat together before our meeting. That's the most I'd ever seen. So nothing nefarious. I always laugh when I see these very like doom and gloom sounding voiceover guys that do these, could it be the Freemasons, and they get all deep and heavy with it. And I'm laughing thinking about the guys that I was a Freemason with, these older guys that were just, just like any other older guy you talk to, full of good stories and just real fun personalities. Not at all going to be doing something like this. I mean, this is just, I don't think so. Now, maybe, in other countries, they may take it more to heart than that, but not where I was. Not in the lodge that I belong to. I think it's funny, though. All right, I'm just scanning here on my phone before I move on to something else. I did have a few topics here, and I know I saw Catherine S. posted something about this. Oh, Dylan is a Mormon. Interesting. I didn't see that. See that BB says Dylan is Mormon. Interesting. Oh, there's Scott Metalhead. There he is. There he is. That's my guy. All right. So Catherine S. had asked about wanted to bring up the idea of these theories, these alternate theories of what could be out there. And so why don't we talk about that? I mean, we've been kind of bouncing around a little bit with the frat boys today already. So anything to add to the frat boys? I mean, there's several of them that certainly could have been involved in this thing. I mean, I don't know what you guys think. We've talked about 4chan before, and how the 4chan posts were very, very much about the frat boys. Talked about two of them specifically, right? David Loach, David Baracoa. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's what 4chan poster said. All this stuff we talk about is alleged anyway, but that they could have been involved in this. They had this murder fantasy since high school. Gets into all this information that only somebody that knew about these crimes would have been able to do. Because the 4chan posts, the first ones came out December 12th. So one day shy of a month from the crime. So that would have been long before, good 2-3 weeks before we would have heard about Koberger. So, that would be stuff that only somebody that was close to the crime would have been able to come up with, in my opinion. So I think that it's perfectly feasible that this person either knew who did it or was involved in it. One of the two. The moment I first heard or was on, I think it was on, going back to Thought Riot, the moment I first heard the 4chan posts and the content that was in those posts, it gave me the chills, because it gave me the feeling that it really happened. The person that wrote that was either a writer that was able to make the writing sound very real, or somebody telling the truth. And here's why I say that. As a writer, that is the hardest thing to do, is to make a person reading what you're writing actually feel emotion, fear, dread, all those different emotions that come up as you're reading something. That is not an easy thing to do. And there's stuff that I've written that I like, and then there's stuff that I've written that I like more. And the stuff that I like more is that feeling of, you can actually feel what's going on, the pace of the writing also has something to do with it. Now, reading posts on an anonymous message board is about as dry as it's going to get, right? So you don't really have much in the way of a setting. You're just like in this, anonymous message board, which could have all sorts of weird people in there, right? Probably does. Lots of normal people too, but there's some weird people in there, I'm sure. And so you're though there's that, that kind of creepy feel maybe to it. But something about those posts I thought were real, and they were saying it was the frat boys, and got into some of the details there. But what do you guys think? Frat boys, or do you guys want to talk about the other? Kelly Land says, yeah, that the frat boys didn't like Ethan. Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. I see here Alex Rivera says Kaylee is still alive. I've seen, I did a whole episode on a whole video and a live on a live theory of that. None of them were done for. They all were whisked away into like some sort of witness protection program type thing. And then maybe that they were part of because we keep hearing that there's something, and I'm getting ready to put out a video. I was going to do it last night and I fell asleep. Talking about falling asleep, my gosh, I don't think I've ever slept so much. I must have really needed some sleep, because I've been really, really struggling sleeping lately. And man, I slept for a long time last night. But I was going to put this out last night. I'll probably end up doing it later tonight. Is on theories of what about the crime scene that we know would help us figure out who could have done these things. And I kept coming to the same answer, which is because they haven't told us, or we're not sure if what they're telling, is real. So we don't know how gory the scene was, because we hear in one hand it was really gory, and then in the other we've got college students traipsing around the scene, not saying a word about any of the gore or any of the smell or anything. So we really don't know what to believe there. How do you base any decision on that when you got two opposing viewpoints there and no real concrete proof of anything? Then what about the signature? A lot of these serial killers will do, these signatures that they're always in their scenes, like the Charles Albright, the Texas eyeball killer. He took the eyeballs from his victims, with an X-Acto knife. And when they arrested him, they couldn't find the eyeballs, and they asked him, they never were able to, he never told them where he put them. So it's always been a mystery what he did with them. And so, there's ones that do the same thing, Gacy with the handcuff trick and some of the different things he did. these guys have these signatures, and so BTK, he did his bind, torture, kill. They all have these, certain things that they do, and you can tell it was them, or it could have been them. Occasionally they mix it up, but they tend to stick to their wheelhouse, what they know. Um, Here's an interesting one that Carl Thomas suggests. Best guess: the same frat boy who killed Lindau killed Chapin. That's a good one, Carl. I would I wouldn't put it past them, because I think that could have been one of the catalysts to this whole crime, is that Ethan was getting ready to spill the beans on Hunter Lindau's passing, because that was very suspicious, and that he was going to say something. So you would have been, potentially exposing, because there were a couple of different frats potentially involved in that one. So, but they say he was waterboarded as part of like a hazing, and it just got out of hand. And then they knew they couldn't just let him, be found there. So at the frat, so they got rid of him down by this Paradise Creek, which runs there by Greek Row. So, it makes you kind of wonder, did that really happen? Is that how it went down? And if so, you had somebody out there wanting to talk about that, and people get a little nervous. We know that Kaylee was supposed to be super into true crime, and that she, she would have been a huge fan of Murder Metal Mayhem. I guarantee it. I mean, she looked like she could rock a little bit. So Kaylee there would have been all about some Murder Metal Mayhem, but unfortunately, she was attacked with the rest of them. I think it was just she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. But then when you see about the extreme violence that was, put upon her, I mean, almost more than any of the others, it's like, why is that? Why did somebody get so out of control with her as compared to the other ones? Usually that means that there's some sort of grudge, or, you got Jack Decor, the ex of only, a few weeks before. That name gets brought up still. People that would have had that kind of anger toward her, who knows, then, you think about gangs that, use those kinds of weapons to prove a point, to make people aware, like, hey, you don't screw around or this happens. There's so many different possibilities. I think that's what makes this case so fascinating, is you can't really rule anything out. Seeing here a lot of people thinking the frat boys, some people saying, Dylan and like her Mrs. Teresa's cohorts. Yeah, her posse over there, like Quinn and some of those people. Somebody says it's a Fed. Lucy Morningstar says it's a Fed. Alex O'Vera says it's the way the mob works. I don't know though. The mob, I could see doing it with guns, not with machetes. I'm just not seeing it. Yeah, I see this. Valerie Boglin says maybe the group all took a jab just to keep them silent. I kind of thought the same thing too. Like you got all these people involved. So if anybody cracks, they're basically turning themselves in with everybody else. But there's that, and then you could also say, well, normally if somebody like that comes forward, they're gonna give them immunity. So it's hard to say, right? Well, if you haven't already done so, make sure you like the video, the live here. Make sure you subscribe if you're not a subscriber. And if you're on the replay, think about dropping a comment below, letting us know what you think. I'm going to check and see. I can see my clock and see what time. So we got about 15 minutes left. I've been scanning comments and stuff to see if anybody had anything specific they wanted to bring up. I always have a list of the ones I wanted to get into. Somebody had brought up, I have their name here, the screen name. I think I've got it. I try to give credit where credit's due. If somebody has a good question. Nathaniel, Ethan's brother, being at the scene, and do we think that he'll have to testify? That's a good question. I don't really know about Ethan's brother. We know that he was at the scene, but the first one that was called was Hunter Johnson and not Hunter Chapin, which definitely tells you that it was more for other reasons than letting people know. Because Hunter Johnson, I've always thought, had some sort of role there at the house to keep things in control, avoid problems, no issues, don't want to have any cops showing up. Remember when that video, when Rosenthal shows up there on that day and Kaylee comes out and he's taking pictures of her license. And Hunter Johnson was there, and he just doesn't say a word. He just comes out and plops himself down on the couch. It's like, what are you doing? And he's trying to keep track of what's going on. He wants to hear what's happening. So I think he was there for a reason. And I think he was called for a reason. I do think that he was called for a reason. But when it comes to the Chapins, though, so many questions with them as to, how do they send their kids back to that school after something horrific like that going on with their son is beyond me. Because I wouldn't want to have my kids anywhere near that place. Tommy Saints. What's up, Tommy Saints? Gonna eat some cheese and crackers before the next game starts. There you go. There you go. Got the Yankee game starting here in a few hours, too. Pretty psyched about that. Just looking here at some comments. Yeah, Busted Flesh said, didn't Kaylee have 54 wounds? Yeah, she did. I mean, that's what I've heard, too. I mean, that's insane. That's definitely more than somebody going there to off somebody, right? That's somebody there for like some sort of deep-seated hatred, or somebody there to prove such an extreme point that you don't mess with us or this happens to you. And I know some of the Mexican the cartels do some of this Santa Muerte stuff. Some of that, I've been researching it a little bit, is really interesting. But a lot of them follow that religion, Just scanning here, seeing if you guys had anything else. that you had on your list that I don't have on mine. But yeah, I did, wonder about Hunter Chapin and, that him and his sister, they all three were at that Sigma Chi party. I wonder, are they going to have anybody from that party out on the witness stand? I would think you'd almost need to have somebody explain what the heck happened there, right? Because two of the people that were there are no longer with us. So what happened? What happened at the party that could have potentially sparked that? That's a pretty extreme situation, which is why I've wondered, could there have been some sort of Fight Club gone wrong type thing, right? That there were kids there at a Fight Club type situation and they're all beat up. I mean, look at that video of Hayden Villa over there at the Identity Apartments at 3:30 in the morning. It looks like he just got beat up. Got a big old bump on his head. Shirt looks like his sweater, the Charlie Brown sweater he's wearing, looks like it's got blood or something on it. I mean, it looks like he got his ass whipped. So I'm not sure what that means, but I think he said that the bump had been there for weeks. Well, you don't see it in the video at the grub truck. He doesn't look like that, so that just doesn't make any sense. Just like half the stuff in this case just doesn't make any sense, right? So yeah, I don't know about if they're going to testify or not. I would assume both of them with the party before, and then maybe making a statement about what they saw when they got there that next morning. But I haven't heard of anything more concrete than that. So good question on Nathaniel. I had another one here from Allison J6 Jazz. Asked about Hannah Cleary and about her passing a few months before this happened, and so I did a video recently about Hannah. Quite a few of you liked it. It got a lot of views, but Hannah, very sad story, very plain girl. She was really into reading and studying, and she loved the library. That was like her dream job, was to be a librarian. So she was super into that kind of stuff. And so you can only imagine, she was getting bullied and tormented by the girls in school that were into the partying and, getting hammered on the weekends and all that stuff. And they made fun of her about the way she was. So, they certainly at odds there, those two groups of people, right? And then all of a sudden, Hannah is, found deceased and with a bottle of her, it wasn't sleeping pills, it was cold medicine. She had some cold medicine there with her. And it was just, they say it was an accidental overdose. Some people say that she was actually, attacked and caused to be in that way. Also read some account that one of the roommates that lived there said that they saw some red stuff and then a blanket to cover it up. I'm not really sure about that. Because if she was found that way with cold medicine, I don't know where that would have come from. So I'm not really sure about that. But certainly some mystery there. And then somebody said something about Hannah's brother and a couple of other people were there that night of the Idaho 4, where they maybe had like a revenge type thing, because they said that Hannah lived in the same dorm as Maddie when they were freshmen, and that's where it all started. Well, if Maddie was there, then, Kaylee would have probably been around too, because they were, best buddies. So pretty good chance both of them would have maybe been involved in it. But we know for sure Maddie was. That was the recurring story you hear from that. And then there was the case where in one of the memorials for Maddie, somebody commented, kind of like, you got what you deserved. You treated that girl so badly and all this and that, pretty much blaming her for the Hannah Cleary passing. But Hannah's parents, her dad was on record. You can look it up. If you search for Hannah Cleary, you'll see it. He says, hey, we've gone through all the reports. We've talked to the police. We feel confident that, the way she was found, that was an accident. We don't blame anybody. It's unfortunate, but we don't blame anyone. And just wanted to kind of leave it there. But I don't know. I mean, in this area, I don't know if I believe anything that these police say. They said that the Hunter Lindau case was also an accident. I don't know. The guy was a swimming champ, and he dies in 2 inches of water in a creek behind the Greek row houses. Definitely makes me wonder, what was going on there. So, I don't know. Okay, well, let's see. If nobody else has any questions or comments they want to make, I'll kind of leave it up to you here for the next few. But I'll be in surgery on Monday. I'll get out of surgery Monday morning. It's a very quick procedure. And I think I'll have an eye patch on until Tuesday. I can take it off, and then I go for a follow-up that morning, and then that's it. So I'll be probably, at least on the message board and the community tab, I'll post something about how I'm doing. But and I'll let you know about the live, if we're going to do something maybe Wednesday or Thursday for the members. Want to do a members only live first on Wednesday or Thursday night. So we'll do something like that, get together. But thank you all for coming. I appreciate you guys very much for being a part of this today, and always enjoy doing these videos with you, and just chit-chatting a little bit, and talking about the case, but also some of the other stuff too. But we'll be back in a normal schedule. I've got a video I'm going to put out. Like I said, it'll either be tonight or tomorrow morning, probably tonight. And then there probably won't be another one again until maybe Tuesday. So definitely not going to do one Monday with all that I'll have going on. But after that, maybe Tuesday, we'll see. If it's the way everybody says it's going to be, it should be like awesome on Tuesday. So especially compared to what I've been dealing with the cataracts in both eyes. So it's been pretty wicked. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you again, and we'll see you next time.